You need to build your team so that you are consistently in a spot to compete starting today, moving forward, and find a way to bust through.
To paint a picture of what Brad Treliving would inherit upon his arrival in Calgary, the Flames had recently traded franchise icon Jarome Iginla. In 2012, Vezina-winning goaltender Mika Kiprusoff elected to retire, and in April of 2014, the Flames officially missed the postseason for a 5th consecutive year. The Flames were in a all-too-familiar state of limbo, and Brian Burke intended to change that.
This is all about having a parade. You know, it seems very distant on a day like today. You know, our team's struggling, we're near the bottom of the standings, and the guy's standing up here talking about titles, and people are saying, man, this guy needs a urine test. But that's what this is about.
So, on April 28th of 2014, Burke made his move in signing Brad Treliving as the team's new general manager. The son of Boston pizza mogul Jim Treliving, Brad had spent 11 years as Don Maloney's sidekick in Arizona, operating on a shoestring budget. Brad's primary role in Phoenix was contract negotiations, experience which was appealing to Burke as a known negotiator in his own right.
Is this a good deal or not?
Thank you so much.
It's a great deal.
Treliving's first big test came at the 2014 NHL Draft as the stage was set to make his mark in front of the Flames faithful.
With the 4th pick, the Calgary Flames are proud to select from the OHL, Kingston, Sam Bennett.
As the highest selection in Flames history, hopes were high on Bennett's, but that draft was ultimately a bust for the Flames. Bennett was their only selection from that year to ever play in an NHL game, and he never reached the heights expected of him while in Calgary. To top things off, he also picked up Brandon Bollig from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for a 3rd-round pick, which was far too much to pay. Turning to July 1st, Treliving signed goaltender Jonas Hiller as well as Mason Raymond, but most shockingly of all, Derek England was inked to a 3-year, $8.75 million contract. To that point in his career, England was a fringe 3rd-pairing defenseman, but the mandate in Calgary was to bring in more toughness.
Truculence.
Come the 2014-15 season, Tree locked up the first member of the team's future core in signing T.J. Brodie to a 5-year, $23 million contract. Despite Brodie's status as the team's whipping boy, this was a decent piece of work. That year, expectations were low, but with the emergence of rookie Johnny Gaudreau, the Flames earned the moniker of the Cardiac Kids as the team surged to a 3rd-place finish in the Pacific Division. The Flames accomplished this despite a modest sell-off at the 2015 NHL trade deadline, and after losing Mark Giordano to a torn tricep, Treliving claimed David fucking Schlemko off waivers.
Here goes David Schlemko. First game as a Flame for the win, and he scores!
Jumping into the Flames' first-round matchup against the Vancouver Canucks, the truculence that Brian Burke thought about every night in his sleep was actually instrumental in their success. Michael Furland was an absolute menace in that series, running the likes of Kevin Bieksa over and over and over again.
Here's David Jones, takes the shot, rebound, Furland can't bury it, loose puck, Stajan scores!
So, the Flames won their first playoff series since 2004 and went on to play the Anaheim Ducks before being ousted in just 5 games. Despite this finish, the season was a resounding success and was arguably the catalyst for a drastic shift in Treliving's long-term plans. At the 2015 NHL Draft, the Flames hit on 3 of their 5 selections, taking Rasmus Andersson, Oliver Shillington, and Andrew Mangiapane, but their biggest win came in the form of a trade. On day 1 of the draft, Flames fans woke up to a blockbuster deal as the Flames acquired Dougie Hamilton from the Boston Bruins. Come July 1st, Treliving signed veteran winger Michael Frolik, who was arguably his best free agent signing. Then, later into the summer, Treliving locked up team captain Mark Giordano with a 6-year, $40 million contract. While it maybe wasn't identifiable at the time, this was one of the most critical moves that Treliving made in his entire tenure with the Flames. When pen hit paper, Gio was 32 years old, which did raise concerns on how his contract would age, but now in hindsight, the contract was ultimately a full home run as Gio became the first undrafted player to win the Norris Trophy at the age of 35. Taking a step back from Gio's ability as a player though, this contract set a certain precedent for future negotiations with Flames star players. Being that Gio was captain of the team, Treliving took a stance that no other player should exceed his single season salary. When Johnny Gaudreau's contract was up at the end of the following season, it took until the dying days of the next preseason to reach an agreement. Gaudreau signed a 6-year contract at the exact same cap hit as Gio. Reports of Gaudreau's dissatisfaction with the bargaining process leaked, but Treliving got the job done, so who cares, right? Jumping to 2018, when Matthew Tkachuk was up for contract negotiations, a similar narrative ensued. Tkachuk was signed to a bridge deal just prior to the 2019-2020 season with an annual cap hit that just exceeded that of Gaudreau and Giordano's. Talking about this cap structure ideology, the Flames weren't the only team to adopt it. The Boston Bruins notably operated with a similar strategy through the mid-2010s, using Zdeno Chara's contract as a loose ceiling. Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, and even Torrey Krug consequently signed for below market values with the idea of prioritizing winning, but in comparing these two teams, a blaring contrast exists. Calgary is not Boston. The Bruins are an Original Six team in one of the most popular cities in North America, and to top things off, the Bees were one of the most consistent clubs in the entire NHL. Winning was feasible and offered further incentive for star players to take less. This isn't to shit on Calgary as a city, because I live here and I think it's fine. But for millionaire hockey players who are foreign to the city, it's probably easy to think that the grass may be greener elsewhere. In conclusion to this point, the idea of implementing a team-based cap ceiling is admirable, and in some cases it can really work out, but Treliving's strategy neglected the reality of the hockey market he was managing. And I think it played a significant role in the eventual departures of both Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk. Wrapping up this video, we aren't going to highlight and analyze every single trade and signing that Treliving made in his 9-year tenure. Under his leadership, the Flames were inconsistent. At times, they appeared to be among the best teams in the league, but more often than not, they'd follow dominant seasons with a significant step back. Treliving made some great trades that put the team in an excellent spot, and he was also arguably the best drafting GM that the Flames had since the 1980s, though the bar was low to begin with. All that said, he failed to find consistency in his coaching staff, and more often than not, used temporary plugs in the team's goaltending department. I think the greatest what if for the Flames goes back to 2015. Had they missed the playoffs, Treliving could have taken a more patient approach. Perhaps Giordano even becomes an expendable piece at that time, and his precedent-setting contract is never signed. Who knows? Treliving ultimately inherited a mediocre team, and he left it in a similar state. He won 2 playoff rounds in 9 years and somehow walked away on his own terms. For What's Happening Hockey, I'm Tate Laycraft, and today's video was written by Brennan Schofert.